Alright, this is Dr. Both. Welcome back to some Kerbal Space Program. Okay, so the next mission we're going to go on Kerbal is a return trip to Laythe. So, if we're going to Laythe, we may as well build a space plane. The reason for that is Laythe has an atmosphere, and that atmosphere is one of the only atmospheres in the game, aside from Kerbin's, that will fuel air-breathing engines. So I've got this guy powered by 4 rapiers. The rapier is a really good choice on Laythe because the atmosphere is actually relatively dense compared to the strength of gravity, so you can get a lot of mileage out of these air-breathing engines and get pretty far. I've also got the aerospike intakes for that sort of high-speed, hypersonic performance. So I'm going to take it on a test flight, see if we can get out of Kerbin's atmosphere, see how it flies, try for re-entry in Kerbin, and if it passes all of those tests, then we'll set out on a Laythe mission with it. So those engines I just got rid of were for orbital maneuvering before landing on Laythe. So we don't need them for this test. In fact, my plan is to land this thing on Laythe fully fueled, so we can take back off again without having to do any mining. I've also got a shielded docking port there on the back, so that I can hook up to a transfer vehicle, which I have subcontracted out to a Scandinavian company by the name of Acumen Industries. So that particular collab will come next week. So one extra thing I do have in here is a cargo bay with a rover in it. So let's see how well the rover works. Maybe rover's a little stuck. Let's maybe like wiggle it out. There we go. There's the rover. Again, totally fine. Everything's fine. Everything's less fine. That was perhaps a little dramatic. So I think my rover may have been a bomb. It's not ideal. That was a really, really ridiculously violent reaction for something that had no fuel tanks on it. Maybe let's try that again. There we go. Just roll it on out of there gently. Apparently there's no crew in the ship? That's a bit odd. Anyway, it just wants to roll down the runway empty of all crew. I'm just gonna let's play with the rover for a bit. So it's got a bunch of science on it. It's got a little command seat, and it totally fits into that cargo bay. It is apparently a bomb. So we do have to be a little bit careful about that, but I think mostly it's fine. Yeah, cool little rover. So we're going to take this to Laythe in the cargo bay of that plane that's rolling away down the runway. My plan is to land that fully fueled, drop off the rover, do some science, and then take off and head out into orbit where I'll meet up with an Apollo-style orbiter. So I'm going to put some pilots in that aircraft and take off. If I can get up to Kerbin orbit or close, then it should be totally fine to go up into Laythe orbit later on. And then I'm going to test landing it empty. I've already tried spawning it in orbit full of fuel, and I know I can land it full of fuel. If I can also land it empty, then that means this same spaceplane can be my reentry vehicle when my astronauts get back to Kerbin. So let's do some tests. But I think first I have to recover the vehicle and put some pilots in it. Again, what the fuck? Why does that happen? Why does it explode with amazing violence? Okay, that time it didn't damage anything. That rover just really wants to explode. Whatever. All right, let's try flying this plane better this time. Did my air brakes just blow up? God damn it. Good enough. Alright, so after that launch, you're all, I'm sure, very ready to hear my advice on how to fly a spaceplane. Honestly, though, it comes down to choosing your angle of ascent. If you choose your angle of ascent too quickly, then when you get high up, you won't build up enough speed to be forcing air through your supersonic intakes. But if you climb too slowly, then you will be going too fast when you're too low in elevation. So you can kind of manage that with throttle and stuff. So on balance, you probably want to err on the side of not climbing quite too quickly, even though that requires a little bit more patience. Also, while canards and control surfaces near the nose of your aircraft look cool, I've been repeatedly informed by my friends who actually know things about aerodynamics that they're almost always a terrible idea, as they make your craft extremely unstable. one way to know when to switch over is I like to switch over when my intakes are reporting less than something like, say, 15. So that's actually pretty soon. Yes, I can see things dying off now, so I'll switch over. Once you switch over, there's no reason to hang out where the atmosphere exists at all. Now you're burning oxidizer, so you want to take a more like rocket-like trajectory, so you immediately steer up to something like 45 degrees and get out of the atmosphere because it's only providing drag and no benefit for you anymore. I always found it funny how the computer will move the control surfaces to try to maneuver even when they do literally nothing. So speaking of which, in anticipation of re-entry, all of these air brakes are going to be important both for braking and maneuvering, so I'm going to give them all some control authority now. So one of the glaring issues with this design, it is not super stable on deceleration and re-entry. So those air brakes in the back keep the back pointed at the back during re-entry, which is important. And that is a stable orbit, meaning this should pretty easily be able to get off of Laythe and into orbit around Laythe. Alright, now I have to slow back down so I can get home. So now we're getting to the part where I'm really not sure if this will work or not. I don't know what this will be like landing empty. With fuel burned out, that changes your weight balance, which means the whole plane, space plane, can fly differently. So I've got a ton of control surface, and I'm not necessarily going for a horizontal landing. I have parachutes, so we will see what happens. Ooh, running out of electric charge. I hope that doesn't screw me over. Because I kind of can't turn the engines on anymore. I guess there goes my reaction wheels, but I should be using aero anyway. Of course, I'm heading for the freaking mountain ranges. This is not ideal. Ah, a lake. I can be saved. Heading for the lake. So, really hoping my delta wings actually help this kind of low speed maneuverability and keep my stall speed nice and low, because otherwise this is going to end really badly. All right, I'm going to gear up because I think we're heading into the water. I may have a little too much roll authority. Okay, flare. Hopefully not stall. Oh, I'm going to stall. Oh, I wish I had some engines. Oh, this is probably going to go badly. All right, one more flare, then parachute. I mean, it's not ideal, but everyone survived, which is good. I think we hit the water at around about 45 miles an hour there. But most of that was horizontal velocity, so just kind of tore stuff off the craft rather than destroy it. So let's summarize. We can definitely use a space plane to go to Laythe. I've landed it fully fueled before, where you can kind of turn on the engines to soften that landing. Now I know that works. Landing it empty is a bigger question mark, but we'll see. We'll see what Acumen Industries comes up with if they have a reaction or a re-entry vehicle built into their transfer part of this Laythe mission. All right, so then next thing I'm going to do, I guess, is stable this on top of a rocket and put it up into Kerbin orbit in preparation for transfer over to Laythe. So the space plane for Laythe is up. Next, we need to dock with a transfer stage that is coming from a particular Scandinavian industry. Cumin Industries will be providing that next week. We'll be docking in orbit and heading over to Laythe. So that should cover us for this week. Next time we see what our transfer stage looks like, we dock, fly over to Laythe, and then prove that we can land this ridiculous thing on Laythe and take back off safely. Alright, I will see you next week.